Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
Today we're going to dive into the dumpster fire of modern communication, also known as fexting.
Fexting.
Or text fighting. You've heard of sexting, but we're talking about text fighting today. This is an observation that we've both made. You've seen it before. You might even be guilty of it yourself. You might be blushing right now or getting ready to turn this one off because it feels a little too close to home. But we all know this person. You'll be at a party, or maybe it's at the office, or maybe you'll pass someone in the mall or something like that, and they've got their head buried in their phone, and they are frantically throwing their thumbs at the screen. Just tap, 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 as they are fighting back and forth. You can see just paragraphs and paragraphs being sent. Is this helpful? Why are we doing it? We can expect to learn a few things about the reasons we do it, the justifications for it, and whether or not it's actually helping anything at all. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. First things first, we've got a website, twfo.com, where you can find all sorts of awesome resources. We've got a free community that you can access there. It's on Facebook. You can connect with thousands of other people, listeners of the show, who are going through similar situations. You can get with them, figure out what they've done in your shoes. Maybe they're further along than you. You can be there for other people who are brand new in it. You've got something to offer. There's nothing like being there, having the ability to be there with other people going through the same thing. Just not feeling alone sometimes is massively beneficial. We've also got a free newsletter and blog on that site. You can sign up by going all the way to the bottom, entering your email address, and I will email you a newsletter every Monday morning, bright and early. Usually goes out at like 4 a.m. Central, so 5 Eastern. It's got some just musings about topics related to addiction or relationships or life. Anything I'm thinking at the moment that could be helpful for somebody, something I've learned that I'd like to share with other people. We've also got a course, if you don't know about our course. Hang on, before I go course, we've also got merch. I heard from the merch guy today. He's printing them today. By the time this comes out, I should be getting them. And then maybe Friday or something this week, they'll actually be on the site.
Maybe.
I'm trying,
Sometimes
guys.
we don't, do what we say.
Trying really hard to get these things to you. And we've got a new color as well, which I'm kind of excited to unveil. Hope you like it. We've also got Recovery Rocks. If you don't know what Recovery Rock is, it is that right there. Show the camera. It's got our logo on the front, and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." This is a token of appreciation for a spouse, partner, friend, someone that has been there with you through addiction, fought with you through it. They've been stood by your side and worked through it. Spouses and partners just don't really have things like this. Like when I was sober, 30 days, 60 days, 1 year, whatever it might be, I got a chip and everyone clapped for me and it was awesome. But spouse oftentimes feels a little left out in those situations because their sacrifices just aren't recognized. So that's a really cool way that you can show appreciation. They come in various colors. This one's black, but we've got like
gray, beige, like natural colors.
Yeah, the rocks, right? So whatever rock colors.
Rock colors.
Rock colors. Okay, now the course. So we've got a course called Independently Strong that we built with a licensed therapist, Dr. Christopher Taylor, who was on last week's episode. Independently Strong is our version. It's an alternative to things like Al-Anon of healing for a spouse or partner. We use a context. We use a method we call VEER, V-E-E-R. We all know what VEER means. It means to change direction, which is really what we're trying to do here. But VEER stands for validate. First thing we're going to do is we're going to validate you. Healing starts when you feel heard. End of story. If you don't feel heard, it's never going to completely take hold. Right. We understand that. So we're going to provide a safe space for you to express emotions like fear, frustration, resentment, and anger that have often been suppressed, things you've been told you're not allowed to have because someone has a disease. These things are very real. Healing begins with acknowledgement. Then we're going to educate you. Using social learning theory and addiction education, we're going to help people untangle their confusion and gain a clearer understanding of what addiction is, how it presents itself, and how to work with someone in recovery, outside of recovery, when they're in active addiction, and understand what the realities of recovery really are. Then we're going to empower you. This is the big part. This is where it really starts to take hold and change your life. Through self-care, boundary setting, and personal growth, we're going to help you shift focus inward and regain control over your life, regardless of whatever your partner decides to do. This is for you if you're in a relationship with someone who's still using, if you're outside of a relationship, if you've already split, if you're kind of on the fence, unsure of what to do. Yes, it is for you.
And
yes,
if your
it is
partner's
helpful.
in recovery, it's helpful for you as well.
Absolutely. Helpful for people who are in recovery too. Like from my standpoint, this is really helpful. It's helpful information to understand what your spouse or partner's gone through. It strengthens connection there. Then last thing, we're going to recover. Armed with confidence now, we're going to help you make decisions about your relationship, whether to repair it or leave, based on clarity, not confusion, based on certainty, not fear. Again, we're an alternative to traditional programs like Al-Anon, because Paige didn't work an Al-Anon program.
No.
And we've got 75% off that course using the code Wheelies75. That's Wheelies with an S, 75 at checkout. Last thing, we've got a sponsor for today's show. Thank you to SoberLink. SoberLink's awesome. I've seen several people reach out about this device. It's really fitting for various types of situations you could be in. If you are in a co-parenting agreement of some kind,
This should be mandatory.
I think that this is, yeah, it really should. Honestly, it really should. This will give you proof when it matters that your children are going somewhere that you can trust. They are going with someone who's safe and of sober mind. It's really, really great. So it is high tech as it gets. They've got government grade or military grade facial recognition technology. So it kind of works like Face ID, like on a phone. Android's probably got something similar, but uses some kind of data points to know who's actually blowing into this thing. You can't have a friend blow into it. You can't use an air pump to blow into it. It's got to be the person. It also has a scheduled time to blow that you're both going to agree on. It's not random. You can agree to blow at these particular times, and then it gives you instant feedback. Lets you know, was this a failed test? Was this a past test? Or was something up? And if something's up, it's really cool. They have a 24/7 standby staff that looks at this stuff. Actual humans who are examining the data to make sure that what's coming out of it adds up. They know the difference if someone has put on a bunch of cologne or they've had some guy said, what did he say? He blew like a 0.11 and he was like, I had a bunch of sugar or something like that. Like, no, man, they know the difference. Listen, a lot of times when you're a spouse or partner and you've lost your ability to tell when someone's lying or when they're not.
Yeah.
SoberLink cuts through that. And they're not on one side or the other. They're not interested in getting in the middle and trying to prove one side right or wrong. They're interested in providing the best and most accurate data possible. And they do better than anyone else in the industry at this. They are excellent. Now, having said all this, SoberLink is not going to fix your relationship. If you're with someone and you're tired of them lying to you, you buy them one of these things, they don't have to blow in it, right? They don't have to voluntarily, or you have to get them to volunteer. You can't force someone into this. And so we've never wanted to push anything that's going to put a larger burden on a spouse or partner than there already is to carry the weight of things. So if you volunteer to do this, I think this is an amazing tool if you want to reestablish trust in a relationship. If you're with someone who's been in and out of treatment or sober living or God knows what, right? And you've lost your ability to tell when they're lying and when they're not, SoberLink is going to help you cut through that because it will provide you data that they have volunteered to give you on a regular basis. And you can also sign up several different contacts. So you can have your spouse or partner, you can have like your counselor, you can have your attorneys, you can have whoever you want to receive these messages. Maybe you've got like a sober community that you want to see. Hey, he's doing it. He's sober. It's just proof when it really matters. So SoberLink's an amazing partner of the show, and they have given our listeners a $50 coupon off of a device. Going to soberlink.com/wheels and entering that code will give you a discount coupon that you can then enter to get one. Again, it's soberlink.com/wheels. And thank you to SoberLink. Okay. All that's out of the way. Did I miss anything?
Nope. I don't think so. Oh, yes. We have Patreon now.
That's right.
We opened a Patreon. You wrote that down?
I did write it down. I just didn't say it. We've had people over the years, like we'll get emails from these really just kind people who don't necessarily want a sweatshirt or like a rock or something, but they want to support us. And I think that's amazing. And I've never wanted people to feel like us being here is contingent on your financial support. It's not. It's just not, right? But if people have asked, like, do you have a way that we can contribute? Yeah, we've started a Patreon. So Patreon, you can join for as little as $5 a month and just contribute to the show. Every dollar you spend will go back into the show. That means new cameras. That means a new set, better content, guests, maybe some people to help us. That'd be the best thing. Afford to
we
pay
do
someone.
everything. Damn it.
afford to pay someone to freaking help us, that would be amazing. But there's also another tier of that where you can, I think it's for $10 a month, and you can get a live Q&A with us once a month. We'll sit down with people for an hour and maybe an hour and a half, kind of depends. If it's fun, maybe we'll stick around even longer.
Yeah.
And we're going to answer questions, whatever you might have. Questions about us, how we solve problems, or questions about your life. What would we do if we were in your shoes? And I think it'd be really fun.
Yeah, and it may evolve over time. Right now, this is all that we can do in the moment.
Just can't swing it. Just two people.
We've got a lot going on. So, yeah, that's new.
Yeah, and if you want to find more information on that, you can click on the link tree in any of our social media profiles. So like on TikTok or Instagram. And you'll find Patreon there. We've also got a Venmo and a PayPal set up if anyone wants to contribute. Again,
we
you don't have to do anything.
In the community as well.
You owe us nothing. You don't have to do anything. Believe me. If you want to support, though, that's great. And we appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Truly.
Thank you.
Truly, thank you. All right. Now on to this Fexting mess.
Yes,
Let's get into this.
Okay, so Fexting, that term, that you taught me that. You just said this, I don't know, a week or so ago. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, I didn't create it.
Because I just say text fighting.
I didn't make it up.
I know you didn't make it up.
Oh,
but I'm saying I hadn't heard it ever.
Yeah, Fexting. We've all heard of sexting, of course, but
yeah.
Fexting. We're fighting over text message. This has become more prevalent than I think people just having good old-fashioned fights.
I think it's the norm these days, is that this is how people communicate.
It is, and part of that is, listen, technology, like texting wasn't even around when we were in high school.
No.
It wasn't around when we were in college, really.
Shit, I didn't get a cell phone until I was 16. We got together when we were 14, so we didn't even have the ability to do that.
Back in the day, you used to have to pay per text. Now, it wasn't expensive. Wasn't it like 99 cents a text or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It was nuts.
And if you went overboard or something, they charged per word or something like that.
Yeah, it was
it
was complicated.
Yeah, so we didn't have that back in the day. We didn't start texting until much later in our relationship.
No, but some of our younger listeners may be in a situation where that's all they've known is a relationship that was kind of built over text, even though ours sort of was. Because we
met online, went on AOL Instant Messenger.
AOL Instant Messenger, if anyone remembers that.
But we were only talking for a few weeks before we actually met in
each
person.
other at school.
And then we talked on the phone all the time. And we would talk, at school in between classes. So we had a good mixture.
Yeah, but text messaging has just become so prevalent. And for a lot of people, it is their preferred way of communicating.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Texting was really just meant for very short, small solutions. Like, hey, can you grab some milk from the store? Or, hey, can you grab the kid from practice tonight? Navigating things like that.
Is the garage door closed?
Right. I don't think that it was meant for, writing paragraphs over and over again and spending hours, at a time trying to get a point across through a freaking phone. It's taken us away. It's taken us away from our just basic human communication skills.
Yeah, and that's kind of the crux of technology, right? Like in its infancy, it was beautiful. It was a way for us to connect easier. It made it easier to connect. It made it more simple to connect. It made it from anywhere in the world you could connect with people. But we've kind of taken that a bit too far now, and it's sort of replaced a lot of the interpersonal skills that I think traditionally have defined what is intimacy, what is communication, what is a relationship really about. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to fighting, it's the interesting one. Fighting over text. I think the first time I remember ever seeing a fight over text message was in chat rooms back in the day, and people would be arguing back and forth. And no one ever wins these things typically. No. Count on me your one hand how many times someone has had their mind changed over the internet.
I'm sure a lot of people have, but you don't really it doesn't.
You have to be open to having your mind changed in order to have your mind changed.
Yeah,
that's the fact of the matter. We think that we can communicate and create this message that's so deep and impactful and meaningful that someone's going to receive it and change their ideas, change their mind, change the way that they feel about a certain situation. But it's usually just not so. And we're just humans. Listen, I've done this too. Okay. I'm not a freaking saint over here. We've had text fights before.
Yeah.
But they really accomplish not a hell of a lot. And think about your own text fights. What are they really accomplishing versus how much time you're investing in them and how wrapped around the axle you get. These things can ruin your day. They take you away from what's important, whether that be your kids,
work,
anytime you're
your self-care.
Let's say that you're at a family member's house or at the gym and you've missed your workout completely because you're going back and forth with somebody over
Almost
something.
knocked over your microphone.
That'd have been bad. Over something just ridiculous. So I think that we can talk about just quickly some of the reasons that text fighting is usually a losing game. And I think one of them is because texting lacks tone and body language and real-time feedback for what we're discussing. Like when we're fighting with someone via text, it's just
words.
text, right?
It's just words, and they can't pick up on your energy. They can't pick up on your body language or your energy because when you have emotions and when you feel a certain way, you can feel it in a room. You know, if you're upset, you're angry or something, you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can't feel that over text message.
No.
You can't tell if somebody's crying. You can't tell if they're like, really upset unless they're like doing all caps or whatever. But there's miscommunication because you cannot pick up on their body language and their tone.
And yeah, that's exactly it. Misinterpretations increase the conflict, and they increase it unnecessarily a lot of the time. A lot of times when we receive a message, we receive it in the context for which we are feeling in that moment. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, we're projecting an emotion onto that text message. Now, if you've been with someone for a very long time, you kind of know the difference in their text language.
Yes. And text fighting, actually, whenever you've been in a relationship for a long time where you have intimacy, like in real life, that it's okay to have that occasionally. It makes sense. But if you're text fighting like all the time, it's going to be a bigger problem.
Yeah, we're not talking about people that are able to do this normally. And believe me, many people are able to solve problems via text, hear each other, see each other, make amends, do all that good stuff. But that's not what we're talking about.
That's typically in healthier dynamics.
I'm talking to those of you that spend hours of your day back and forth with someone, or hours of your week back and forth with someone because you think that the way that you worded that is they're gonna hear that. Well, they're gonna hear me. They're gonna see me.
If you're texting to share the way that you feel, hoping that somebody can hear you and see you and get your point of view. Healthy communication is being able to listen to other people. It's not about getting our point across to somebody else. It's not about telling them how that we feel and them taking it. The whole point of communication is to listen to the other person and have their perspective in mind. But when we're text fighting, what are we doing? We are just constantly like, heard. I need you to hear this. You need to read this. Look what you said. Look what I said. I need you to hear me, validate me, hear me, all these things. That's not what healthy communication is about.
Right. Yeah, that's not a productive fight. And we'll get into some of these a little deeper, but I think something else that it does, in addition to what you just said, is I think it makes it easier for manipulators to manipulate.
I was going to say that. I actually did a video recently about that, is that it does make it easier for manipulators to manipulate because you can't pick up on the tone or what's going on or what they're really saying.
Yeah, and I think that if you're manipulative, you can take... Especially if you've been in therapy or something like that, like you can take that language and you can bastardize it and use it against somebody. Mm-hmm. You can really start to pick apart words. And that's another thing. Like people will study text messages.
That was on my list
for so long.
Over analyzing text messages. Guys, we've got to stop doing this. Now, I understand there are people who will go into the community and they're going to post their texts and they're like, okay, what does this look like here? Can somebody help me? You want to be heard. You want to be validated. You want to make sure that you're seeing the same thing. I get it, guys. I understand why you're posting that because you're not able to trust your instincts anymore. And you need somebody to tell you, hey, is this text message, crazy? I get it. I understand that. But also, we don't need to be in a situation to where we have to overanalyze messages.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah.
I don't want to be in a relationship. I've been there. I've done that with other relationships in my life. Matt has been there with other relationships in his life where the overanalyzing of messages is just so much damn energy. It takes so much energy and it never resolves anything. You're just able to say, you know what, this person is manipulative. And that's end of story. If they're manipulative, what are you going to do about it? Right?
Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
Do you really want to have these conversations with them? Nothing's going to change if you keep on fighting them in the text. Nothing's going to change that.
It's almost addicting in itself.
It's
almost like a game.
It is.
Where they will send you a message and you're like, ooh, I know how to get through to them. And then so you try to like reply to it and get through to them with that. And then I think that they're doing the same thing to us. And it's just this game where no one's really winning and it's not productive. We're not really solving any problems.
Yeah.
We're going back and forth playing this game where we're trying to be heard. And like you said earlier, like real communication, like intimacy is built when we're trying to listen. Like we're trying to hear other people. We're not just trying to be heard.
Yeah.
Generally, a lot of times text fighting, that's what it is. It's just, I need to be heard. No, the other person's like, no, I need to be heard. Or sometimes it gets real dangerous and you get a manipulative person who will take what you've said. Or if they have enough time to process it and think about it, they can think of a really like sleazy and backward way of disarming you of some, or deflecting and reversing victim and offender.
All that.
Yeah, all that is more prevalent, I think, in text messages than anything.
Yes, absolutely.
And it will leave you feeling crazy, man.
It will. And that's why I said I understand why people will post those to make sure that they're not crazy on understanding if this is being manipulative or not. So I do understand that. I don't want to shame anybody for that because I know that there's a reason why you're posting these things and why you want to be heard.
Yeah, I get it, right? I still don't think we should be doing it.
No.
So let's get in some of the justifications, I think, for why people text fight. Because you posted this in the community.
I did.
I've also perused social media and I found other creators that have asked similar questions or had, they brought up topics like this. And this is going to be really unpopular. And I realized that with most of the audience is that this is an unpopular opinion.
Right.
Is that text message fighting isn't as productive as you think it is. And you need to be fighting. If you're going to fight, listen, okay, you can use text messaging as a way to solve an argument, but it shouldn't be your only way of solving issues that you have in your relationship.
Especially if it's ongoing issues that are never resolved anyway. It's just going to go in a circle and your energy is going to be drained.
So here's something that I observed. Most of the reasons that people give for why they're text fighting, like justifications, all they are, these are just... they're justifications masquerading as reasons why you shouldn't be together anyway. That's all they are usually.
Right.
When someone's telling when someone will post like creator, hey, this is why you shouldn't be text fighting. The reasons they'll give back, like one of the first ones is, well, that's the only way that they'll talk to me.
Yeah.
They won't talk to me any other way. You've just given me a reason why your relationship shouldn't exist. That's the way I feel.
Right. It's like, what are we doing here? Because you cannot have an intimate connection with somebody just on text messages. You can't. It is just not possible. So what are you doing in real life? What are you doing when you're at home? How are you communicating with each other? That's what's real. Texting isn't real. It's not real. We can say it's real. I know that we can, like Matt and I will love bomb each other in texts. Let's just be real. We do that. We're very kind to each other in text messages. Sometimes we'll say shitty things too. And I mean it. I obviously mean it and stuff, but it is different when we're in person, right? This is real. The way that we have our passionate conversations in the kitchen, in the house, when we have our stupid arguments that we have before we record, those are real. On texting, it's not real because you cannot figure out what this person is really saying based on their body language and their emotions and their facial expressions and the tone. That's what's real. That's what makes intimacy. That's connection, is providing that safe space. Texting is just, it's fake. It hasn't always been around. It's new. It's a new way of communicating.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's something there. Like there's a difference in me sitting out in front of you and telling you how much I love you and how much I appreciate you and how you've been there for me and how you've been my biggest supporter and my best friend. And there's something different about us doing that face-to-face, eye to eye, than there is what if you knew that I typed that same message in between golf shots while I'm drinking beer, playing golf? Like it doesn't quite mean as much, does it?
No, it doesn't.
These are just words. And oftentimes that's the issue in many relationships anyway. Just words. There's no actions. There's just words. We need less words, more action. And I think sitting down face to face is sort of an action. Like the way that you can look at someone and you know when they're lying. Yeah. You know when they're being real. We were born with these amazing filters for authenticity. And you can tell when someone's being honest with you and when they're just bullshitting you.
Yes, we have a bullshit meter. We have have that. It's natural.
Another issue, and you brought up a good point, is people have like two personalities. A lot of people do this where they have their digital personality and then they have their real personality. And if you're texting and that's the way you communicate most of the time, and that's how you guys, like that's your preferred mode of communication, you have textual attraction. You don't have sexual attraction. You are attracted to an avatar of who they are. This idea of who they are, it's a digital version of who they are, but it's not really who they are. I know people like this. Listeners, you probably know someone like this. Texting with them back and forth, like they're fun, they're like they're clever, like they're well read. a little flirty, like kind of interesting, right? But then when you meet them in person, they don't say a fucking word. They don't say 2 words. They're just super quiet and introverted. I think this is basically defines like every kid under the age of 20.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like that's just, kids do this really bad, but adults do this just the same.
Yeah, but then they'll make the excuse of like, oh, I only text because I'm not comfortable speaking in person, or I'm an introvert, or it's just easier for me to communicate that way. I get it, guys, because I've struggled with that for most of my life. Like, I don't like picking up the phone and calling people. I don't do very well in front of people. So texting would be easier for me to do things. But I have put myself out there more and more, like exposure therapy. And I didn't make it an excuse of saying that, oh, I'm just an introvert, I just need to text. Like, that's not healthy. It's not healthy communication because it's not like real. We have to learn how to communicate in person, and it's getting more difficult with the younger generations. This could be a totally different episode.
I think really like what I'm kind of sick of is hearing people give excuses for why they're not doing something rather than addressing the issue and working toward it.
Yes.
Like usually another one of the big reasons I saw in comments and different threads was like they might have a number of different diagnoses. It's ADHD or it's CPTSD or they're just neurodivergent, and it's just easier for them to process and send information after they've had a moment or two. And I get that. I do. I deal with the very same thing.
Right.
I tend to be impulsive, and I don't really mean the things I would type first or say first. I need to take a second. Okay. I need to process that emotion because I'm quick to trigger. Yeah. Just quick. It's the way I am. A lot of people are sort of the opposite, where they don't really feel much of anything and they have to really process it. Listen, I get it, but it doesn't make it an excuse for why we shouldn't work on these things. These are still skills we need to develop.
Exactly.
And life is not going to work such that it's always going to be super convenient for you to take something, think about it, and then respond. It's also not going to be super convenient for you to work through marriage issues and counseling or something like that if the only way you communicate is via text.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're highlighting a hurdle that you have in life, and that's a valid hurdle. But what you're doing at the same time is giving into that and saying, for this reason, I cannot do what you're asking to do. It's just fucking not true. You can, it's just more difficult, and I get it.
Yeah, and I've recognized that one of the biggest problems within relationships these days is the communication skills are they're suffering.
Garbage.
They're terrible. They're not great at all. I mean, Matt and I had to deal with this too. But text, and I think it does have a lot to do with the texting and not actually learning how to communicate with each other in person. Like, I want you guys to practice and act like you don't have the ability to text anymore. Let's say that you don't have the ability to text for one day. Like, it's going back in time where it's like, I can't get a hold of this person. Don't text. Talk to this person in person and see how it goes and see how it feels and see if it's awkward, if it's not, like, how can you address it? It's just a challenge I would like you to do if you're in the relationship. Now, there are people who are out of the relationship who I understand that texting is, you shouldn't be fighting anymore anyway. You need to be like talking about things at very basic level. If you've got kids, use the kid app. If you've got, issues you're trying to co-parent with or whatever, just use those apps. But just keep it very basic with your texting. You don't need to be fighting anyway. Yeah, unless you're utilizing it for evidence.
That's another one that I was going to bring up.
Well, there's 2 different types of evidence for this. Like, one for evidence that you would need to utilize in court. And for me, I would say you don't have to respond to all text messages. So if there's something that's being said from the other person that you feel like is evidence, don't respond to it. Keep the message, and that's something for proof, because if you respond in a certain way, that can be held against you.
Absolutely.
Court too, because they don't know the context. They're just going to look at whatever's being said and then base it on that. They don't know your whole story. They don't care. It's going to be based on the words that are being said right there. So you have to be careful with what you put out there.
It's like, don't say anything that you wouldn't want to judge reading.
Exactly.
Like, don't type anything that you wouldn't want to judge reading.
Yeah.
Possibly completely out of context.
Yes. Awesome Wheelie actually said that recently.
Yeah, it's true though.
But it is true.
The other type of proof that people say that they need is the one that sort of blows my mind.
Yeah.
Is they will say that I need proof so I can show them
that they said
that
this,
they actually said
that
this.
they actually lied, or that they denied something, or that they did this or that. They have to have it in writing so that they can go back in time, I guess, in another argument in the future to say, oh no, this is what you said. Now I understand you utilizing that as like a way to validate your feelings, but to use it against them, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, maybe so you feel sane.
Yeah, so you feel sane.
It.
I get that.
I get it,
I
guess.
totally understand that, because you're like, okay, no, he really did say this, or she really said this. This is what is in writing, and I see that. But if you're using that information to use against them, it is going to be a waste of time.
Like, oh, this is going to convince them.
It is a waste of energy. It is not going to change their mind. They are going to come back and deny, or they're going to make up a story, or they're going to just like throw you under the bus. Like, it's not going to be productive, and it takes so much energy. And I've said that so many times within this, but I'm just thinking of like all the energy it takes into text fighting and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, once again, if you feel like you need proof so you can show them what they actually said and they're denying it, once again, this is a justification that you're using. I need this proof. This is a justification masquerading as a reason that you have no business being together.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
It's insane to me that you think you would, if you're at that point in your relationship, if you're at that point with someone who's that stubborn and emotionally immature, do you really think it's going to make a difference anyway? I want to hear from someone. Send me an email, matt@twofocouple.com, that showed their spouse a message they sent and they go, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. And then just fixed everything
totally
and never
changed.
did it again.
And
it's never happened. It's a fantasy you tell yourself. You think you need this information,
right,
because it's going to change their mind, but it's not.
Right.
It's not changing anything other than your level of sanity and the amount of time that you get to spend with people that actually matter.
Right.
If you're using your time to justify why someone said something or that they actually said something and you think it's going to make a difference, once again, these are justifications masquerading as reasons. You're giving me the reason why you don't belong together, why this relationship is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've ever really... The only time I've had to go back and look at text messages from you is if like it was something that we were discussing based on either the podcast or what we need to do with the car, or, you know, like really basic things. Like if I were to go back and say like, well, I said this. No, well, you said that. There have been times where I'm like, oh shit, no, I did say that day. I said that it was on that. Or it's like my appointment is on this
totally.
day. You know, it's not
100%.
really fighting. It's just like looking at things that we're saying like, oh shit, that's where it's been convenient for us. But for a fight and actually to go back to prove to you guys, I'm sorry. I don't feel like I've ever been that petty.
If I found myself in that situation, before I showed them the text, I would ask myself the question, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Is this, if I'm at this point, I need to reevaluate everything.
Yes.
Everything.
The whole situation, the whole everything, and how we are. Because also what happens, and this is going to be hard to hear too, is that it makes it easier for us to manipulate in situations on texting.
Proceed.
Okay. Because we want to be able to change your mind in how we feel about something.
Like control.
Control.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So it can make it easier for us to manipulate the situation because we're not saying things in person. In-person conversations are difficult. There are pauses. There are times where you're like, oh, I need to think before I speak. Sometimes you might be impulsive and you'll say something kind of crappy or whatever, and you'll be like, you're such an asshole, you know? But it's different than in texting. In person, you can actually figure out if you need some space or if you don't. You don't really have much time to respond, you know, but you can take that pause of just like, okay, I'm going to think before I speak, but I need to say something, and it's going to be from your heart.
Yeah. I think another thing that it sort of does is it gives you the illusion that you're being heard without actually being heard. Mm-hmm. What it really does is it just gives you a different form of being invalidated. Because if you're being invalidated face to face, and so you think that, okay, well then we'll go to text message because we tend to have more constructive conversations, or that's what you tell yourself. When we're texting, it's generally not the truth. What you're going to do is generally just have another avenue to be invalidated or not heard. Yeah. And it's going to drive you even crazier because you literally have the proof right in front of you. But it's not going to make a difference. No. Once again, like I think I said earlier, is people have their mind changed when they're in the position where they are open to having their mind changed. We change, like in general, I think anyone changes. I know from addiction, truly, it was, I had to want to change. I had to want it way more than you wanted me to change.
Yeah.
I had to be interested in it. It had to be my idea. It had to come from me. And this is no different. If you're taking someone all this information, like all this proof, what are you really trying to accomplish? If it's for your own sanity, I kind of get it, but how many times have you done this?
Yeah, exactly.
First time,
Right.
second time, third
Right.
time, after
Right.
that?
Is it going to keep on?
Don't
'Cause
we
then
see a
then you're
pattern
stuck in
here?
the cycle. You
Yeah,
know?
don't we see a pattern here?
Right.
And another thing I think, like one of the biggest red flags about all this is that if you think that you communicate via text because it feels safe, what you're also like, it feels safer to you because
Yes,
I can
because-
say these things, but I can't say these things in person. Like what you're really saying is that you'd rather text because you feel unsafe with that person face to face. So once again, like what are we doing?
It's another red
now,
flag. Yeah.
Caveat, this could come from a previous relationship. Some people, like we have baggage, right? I have baggage, you have baggage.
Yeah.
Listeners have baggage, we all have baggage. Sometimes we show up to a relationship with things, previous hurts from a different
That we
time in our
haven't healed
lives.
from.
And so you show up and this is just a way you do things because from a previous relationship, you never felt safe
That's
to
how you were
communicate.
conditioned.
But if you're doing it in the relationship you're in currently because you don't feel safe communicating the things that you feel like you should say or that are really on your heart or that you really feel, it's not a relationship worth having.
Right.
Simply put, it's just not a relationship worth having.
Yeah, well, a healthy relationship means that you feel safe and you should be able to speak your mind and feel heard. You should be able to feel heard. Like that's a healthy relationship. I think the healthiest relationships rarely text fight.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think everyone to some degree text fights these days.
Well, I think so too.
And
But
like-
I said rarely text
Well,
fights.
well, I don't want to give anyone the impression that we're like, get off my lawn, like 80-year-old people that are like, get rid of your technology. It's pointless. It serves no purpose.
No.
Because that's not true. It's
No.
super convenient. Every so often, we'll have a spat via text, but it's quickly resolved, and we talk about it when we get home.
Yes.
That's another thing. I think it's a great way to kind of start to heal
Yeah.
whatever rift you
Or
might
you can
have.
say, hey, let's have this conversation later. I'm not comfortable discussing this over text right now.
But if you've got someone, then that's the only way you communicate, especially if you're in the same house. My God, I've seen this too. One of them be upstairs or in the bedroom, and the other one be in like in the living room.
Yeah.
And they're text fighting.
Yeah.
And they're texting each other. Well, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, just go ahead and get on the internet and find yourself like a long distance pen pal boyfriend or something.
Yeah.
Or girlfriend. Like at that point, you're kind of in the same boat.
Right.
A lot of times these relationships lack intimacy. And I know this is something that guys have complained about for a very long time. I always hear from the male listeners that are like, we have no intimacy. We never have sex. We're never,
Physical
we're never
intimacy.
physical. Yeah. And you have no intimacy at all. You guys text each other. Like my 12-year-old texts her boyfriend too.
Right.
Guys, like this is not what real intimacy looks like. You can communicate via text. Don't get me wrong. Everyone should communicate via text. It's one of the greatest inventions ever.
Absolutely.
Like, did we close the garage
I've
door?
solved
Yes or
some-
no?
Yeah, I've
I don't
solved
have
some
to call you
problems
over that.
via text with people. I mean, it's been great for certain things.
But there are people who will sit there and text, and then the person will call them to try to resolve it. And guess what? They don't pick the phone up.
No.
They don't want to. It's uncomfortable, man. Do not get so addicted and used to text fighting that you forget how to solve problems, because you're going to need to solve those problems one day and you're not going to have the fucking skills
Yeah.
because all you know is texting.
Yep.
So guess what happens when you go to marriage counseling? You're going to look at each other and not know what to do because you have no physical, like no intimate relationship. You don't communicate physically.
Right.
Face to face with each other. You're used to the phone screen.
Yeah.
You're in love with your iPhone. You're not in love with them.
Right.
It's completely different.
It is.
Develop those skills. You have to develop those skills, and you should commit to developing those skills.
Agreed.
So I think we've beat people up enough. If you're texting me, like, I shouldn't have to tell you. I think that's ridiculous, and you shouldn't be doing this. This is not how you should be spending your time every day. Hours and hours and hours and hours trying to get someone to see you and hear you, and they don't want to. They have no interest in it, and you're not going to convince them with a bunch of screenshots.
No, you're not. You're not.
You're not. So how can we stop this? If you're a couple that fights and you want to stop, here's what I would say. If it's hyper emotional, talk about it in person.
Yes. So if you get something over your phone and it's like almost a triggering response in your brain, like the emotional feeling that you get where you're just like, oh, I need to say something. I need to defend myself. And you get your phone, you just start like, okay, go ahead and write it out if you want to. Don't click that send button. Don't do it. Or go into your notes and type it out into your notes. Don't send it. Just get it out there. That's fine. That's cool. But don't send it just yet.
You're just going to leave them hanging?
What, the person?
Yeah.
You can wait. You don't need to respond to everything.
I would respond like,
Ever.
is it cool if we talk about this when I get
You
home?
can do that, but sometimes people are like, I've said, like with triggers, sometimes you have like this
and you just got to get it out.
And you got to get it out, and you want to get it out. Like in person, you would probably lose your shit over this person if you were to see or hear these things, whatever they said.
Brought up something I meant to bring up earlier, is the impulsive nature of texting sometimes.
Yeah.
People could do this in person too. You can get so pissed off that you say stuff you don't mean. But I think Mike Tyson said it best. I think he said the internet has made us way too damn comfortable. Mm-hmm. He said, God,
there's shit that you say online that would get you,
your head
punched
knocked off
in the face.
He said something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, it made us way too comfortable saying stuff that we have no business saying without getting our slapped across the face.
Yeah, because if you were to say it in person,
oh man, just go on TikTok.
Back in the day, people would fight each other over that. People are mean
the
over
shit
the
that
internet.
people say on the internet.
Like, holy crap! Like, there's a way. I'm not talking about like disagreeing with somebody. Like, that's okay. But there are people who are just complete assholes and say really mean, ugly things.
Scumbags.
Like, I can't believe that you just said that to somebody, some stranger on the internet, because I don't think that you would say that to somebody else. And if you would, I hope that you would get your face slapped.
You would never say it to someone's face. I know that. I saw some creator the other day, it was some woman, I don't remember what the video was even about. It wasn't about what the comment was about. And someone commented and just started wearing her out about her eyeliner, like making fun of the way she was doing her eyeliner. And it was a really nasty, mean comment.
Yeah.
Just like shit like that. People do it all the time. They think it's okay to attack someone's appearance. You'll say shit you wouldn't normally say. And that is so true with texting because it's so impersonal, which is why we shouldn't be having crazy personal conversations. But it's so impersonal. So you're not saying it to your best friend, right? You're supposed to be your best friend anyway. Your husband or wife, or maybe you're a parent or a kid or whoever. Someone you love, and look in their eyes and tell them that they're a bitch. You wouldn't do that. Most likely. I hope you wouldn't.
Or maybe they would. Some people do.
I hope you wouldn't. But either way, it's a lot easier to type that shit and send it whenever you're being impulsive than it is to say it to someone and mean it. Because then you have to face the consequence right there.
Right.
When their heart breaks and they're looking at you and their eyes are welling up with tears and you see the impact that your fucking words have on somebody.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen via text.
No.
So you can go back and forth saying some nasty shit to people and then the words lose their meaning. This stuff loses its meaning. We shouldn't be talking to each other this way. But people can get way too impulsive via text, and this can be good or bad. Sometimes we get too impulsive on the other side where we want to get super happy and repair things, but then just know there's no follow through.
Yeah.
Because they're just
exactly.
words.
The love bombing.
They're just words, right? And then on the other side, you can get so nasty with text. If you don't believe me, head into TikTok on any controversial video and check out the comment section and look at the shit that people write.
Yeah.
I wish they would dox every single person that said something like that. Like, this is their address, this is where they work, this is what they look like, to give people some kind of accountability. Like,
there's no accountability. Like, that's what it is.
Have free speech, but say it with your whole chest.
Yeah.
Let me see your face when you say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't hide behind the screen, but I think we become cowards in a lot of ways when we fight this way. And we say stuff that's really hurtful. And people, you don't know, that person might remember that for the rest of their lives. And you might have just been impulsively sending it.
Yeah.
So be careful about the shit that you send via text. I was going to say that. We were on how to stop, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you were saying, like, let's normalize saying, let's discuss this later.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. Because I was saying that, like, if you're impulsive and you want to respond, like, with this all emotional text, if you feel like you have an emotional response and you have that feeling, it doesn't need to be discussed over text.
No, man. And
that's what needs to be discussed in person, and you can wait.
I know there are a lot of people who can handle this like mature adults, and I'm not talking to you. I ain't talking to y'all. All right, you're fine. I ain't worried about you guys.
Right, but if you're text fighting all the time, it does show a sign of emotional immaturity with the way that you communicate with others.
Yeah, like if you only fight via text, I'm just not so sure that you're really invested in solving anything.
Yeah,
I think you just want to fight. You just want to be right, and that's immature to me. Like, we're not really...
the next one was go 24 hours without resolving an argument. I said that earlier.
Let's try it. Just try it. Okay, resolving an argument. I'm not saying you can't say, grab eggs on your way home.
Okay.
Or did you see that show last night?
No, this is arguments. So I actually, when I asked the question in the community how people typically communicate, Somebody did mention that they saw my TikTok on don't, stop text fighting. So she stopped text fighting with her spouse ever since I said that. So shout out to you for taking it seriously, because it's going to give you a little bit more clarity in your relationship. Because what happens is that when you continue doing this over and over again, you're continuing the cycle over and over again, the toxic cycle, the trauma bonds. We've talked about trauma bonds before, the highs, the lows. Like, you keep on doing this, you're not going to be able to see your relationship clearly if you continue text fighting. So try to get out of it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself. Look at it as a cool challenge, like a fun challenge, and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Take that challenge and stop accepting the challenge where you think that you're going to redo the way that someone communicates and talks and hears you and sees you and validates you, because you're not going to fix that. That's a challenge that I think people have been taking on, is every time that they get in this text battle, they're like, ooh, I'm going to teach them a lesson that their mother should have taught them. No, you ain't.
Nope.
No, you ain't. You were just going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy with the back and forth and back and forth.
The energy is going to be drained.
Oh my God. Yeah. The time that people can spend on this just absolutely blows my mind. I had another one on this. Yeah. It's easier for me as a default response. Once again, I think there are people who communicate very well via text message, and you can solve disagreements very well via text message. That's your preferred mode of communication. You would be the first people it was easier to write than not, right? People have been writing letters to each other and love letters since forever and solving disagreements. I think what we're talking about is those that spend a great deal of their time anyway, going back and forth, or they find that their text fights are just rather unproductive. Or if you find yourself crying and really upset over these things, or your heart is racing and you're really upset and you're having to show other people screenshots, we're at a point now where we ought to consider not fighting via text. I'm just not sure it's helpful.
Try to think of how, I want to challenge you guys too, and maybe journal about this. How many hours have you spent text fighting? And how many of those hours could have been spent doing something else more productive, like spending time with your children or doing some self-care, maybe working out, maybe doing some actual work and getting a report done that you needed to get done. We've seen people in work who have who have neglected their work from doing texting or doing these text fights and going crazy.
I bet everyone knows someone like that in their office.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Straight up.
Yeah, for sure.
We all know that dude or that girl.
Yeah. So just that's a challenge, is really think, this is a self-awareness challenge. How much time have you spent doing this where it could have been spent somewhere else, doing something more productive? Because I'm telling you, these text fights are not productive unless, like you said, it's something that's pretty small,
Yeah. I think that
knock your freaking microphone.
Text can always provide some pretty good context. And if you're not someone who's great with words, if you struggle to get things out, it can be a helpful way for you to really let someone know how you feel. Just don't do it in the heat of battle, because it's really not going to get read anyway. No one's reading that shit in the heat of battle. You're not. You're just worried about loading the next missile. It's about throwing zingers. That's what people are doing usually when they're text fighting. It's about, I'm going to throw one at you, you launch one back at me. And then it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I guess you just have to ask yourself the question, could we solve this face-to-face?
Right.
Could we solve it face-to-face?
Ooh, could.
Could we solve this face-to-face? And I think if the answer is no, you got to really reconsider if you need to be together.
Right.
Just real talk. I don't understand why you wouldn't entertain that thought.
If you don't feel safe having a conversation with your partner, then there's, a much deeper issue there.
We've got to learn how to just talk to each other and communicate with each other.
Right.
And the nonverbal stuff is so important. And so if you want more intimacy in your relationship, put down the phone. Mm-hmm. Put down the phone, put down the screens, and you can look at each other, talk to each other a little bit. You may not get exactly what you want out of them. It may not be as much as you would normally get via text, but remember, we're here for a reason. It's because that stuff wasn't working anyway. Right. And whatever they're sending you is likely bullshit.
Oh yeah.
People can send all kinds of stuff. I know people that will say shit because it sounds good, not because it's how they really feel. Not because it's genuine or it's coming from a real place, but because that's what the actor would say in this scene.
Right.
That's what they're doing. They're not really meaning anything they say, but you're eating this shit up.
Yeah.
And you think that this is who they are. This is what they really mean. No bullshit. They don't want to mess with you anymore.
Yeah.
They want it to go away. When you're with them, how do they act? That's the real acid test. I think at the end of the day, I don't care what they say via text message. When you're together, the acid test is, do we have chemistry? Can we communicate? Is there intimacy between us? Is there love between us? And that's an action. That's a verb, right? It's not just words from the screen.
Right.
You can bring up all kinds of stuff that people have said via text message, but what do they do when it really matters? And that's the difference for me.
Have you ever overanalyzed my text messages to you?
Not a single time.
I didn't think so.
Not one time.
I didn't think so because I know that you don't think that hard. It's more about what are you going to convey instead of what I'm going to be saying to you. But I see it opposite with us. I've seen people just the overanalyzing of it, of going back through and just like, what did they mean here? What did they mean there? What did they mean there? It's like, it's really pretty simple.
Here's another one that I love. So, hang on a second. There's nothing here that no one can read. Here's something people will do. They'll show their phone like this, right? But they won't do that. They'll only show that. So the other messages are blurred out. Like you click on the one.
Yeah.
And they like to show a message that somebody sent without any real context.
There's no context.
But what I was going to say, back to your point, the reason that I don't overanalyze your text is because we know each other so well because of all the time we spend communicating outside of text message that I know that if you send something that's rather absurd or mean, that you're probably either A, fucking around, or you're overstimulated and you're just having a day.
Yeah.
And I don't take it seriously.
Same.
I don't. But if you don't have that closeness to begin with, that has to be the foundation, y'all. If you don't have that closeness to begin with, that can be interpreted a million ways.
Yeah.
Someone can take it way too seriously. Maybe they don't take it seriously enough. It can be one of the two. So if you don't have a healthy relationship, the text messaging can go either way.
Right.
But it's never going to land where it needs to because
No.
you don't have the context, because you don't talk. This is what's blown me away since we started this show more than anything at all.
I thought I was going to go off on in this episode.
Y'all don't talk.
I know.
What are we doing?
I know.
People will have this like issue, and it's like a serious issue. I'm like, y'all talked about this? No, we don't talk.
You can't talk to somebody in active addiction.
But I mean, it seems
And
like
it's
at
really
no
hard.
point have they ever talked.
Well, I don't know that. They
I
may
don't
have
know
talked,
how
like,
most people get together. Do you just like get together because you just, I don't know, same person, small town, works at the same place I do. Let's get married. Let's have kids because that's what you're supposed to do. How many people are in love? How many people are actually in love? How many people got married for without those reasons, right? How many
Right.
people are close?
Right.
They're best friends.
Right.
I thought everyone was. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I just
don't
thought
know.
everyone was.
I don't know.
But it blows me away that people don't talk more than they do. But here, listen, it's not all lost if you're in a position where you're like, damn, we don't talk. You can start.
Right.
At some point, you can start, and you might actually find you've got quite a bit in common. After all, you live in the same house. You
Yeah.
have kids together.
I mean,
let's start talking.
Well, especially if your partner's in recovery, like that's a great opportunity to really start having conversations.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because you're rebuilding your relationship anyway. I mean, you're both rebuilding yourselves as it is. So that's a great opportunity to actually start talking and communicating and see where you're at.
Yeah, so 2025 is just on the horizon. We are here. It's the week of Thanksgiving. How the hell did we get here?
I don't know.
I'm in logistics, which I can't despise this time of year, by the way. It's the worst. It's the
I
worst.
thought you despised it all year.
Way worse around the holidays.
Yeah, you had a rough day today.
No
that's
such
for
thing as
sure.
an off day in logistics. Trucks don't ever stop rolling. But anyway, I'm entering dates in the system, and I'm like, dude, next
2025.
Monday is December 2nd.
Yeah.
Sunday is December 1st. What the hell happened? Here we are. But anyway, so we start looking forward to 2025 and a workshop that we're going to run. We did a workshop, was it last summer?
It was
Yeah, in the summer.
Yeah.
We did a wheelie workshop. We're going to do another one coming up here first half Q1 of 2025.
We are? Oh, good.
Yep, calling it here. She's just now figuring out.
I'm just learning
Just
this.
now learning about this too, announcing this, but it's going to be a couples workshop for people that are together. The last one we did
In
kind of a
recovery.
mix. We had people, it was sort of a mix. It was awesome. We had people who were out of relationships, people who were on the rocks, and we had people that were together, but I want to do one where people are together. I really think I can help guys. I know I can help guys communicate better. If you're having trouble doing it, I promise you I can make this not weird for you.
Yeah.
And I would love to see you out there. So we'll have more details on that to come. But I know for a lot of guys, it's tough to talk. It's tough, man. You feel vulnerable, and then you feel like it's going to get used against you because and I've seen it. It's fair. It's a fair criticism. I've seen people do this online, especially where a guy will open up about how they feel about something. And for women, as much as they will say, like, I want a guy who's emotional, who can talk about his emotions. They're really quick to throw that shit in your face whenever stuff goes wrong. And that's not right.
That's awful.
But listen, if it's how you really feel, you can find a place of confidence where you can own that. And all right, F them. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'd love to teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, communicate. Please communicate. If you can't solve this problem via text, then okay, could we solve this face to face? Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Is it going to be uncomfortable? I hope it is, because if it's uncomfortable, that means you're growing. That means you're doing something different. I think texting, ultimately, the reason we do it is because it's comfortable and convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient. For sure.
If we need anything in this life, it's less comfort. Everything has gotten too comfortable.
It has gotten way too comfortable. And people are suffering because of it.
They really are.
There's a book called The Comfort Crisis, and it's pretty on point.
It's about that very thing. Yeah, we have too many avenues to be comfortable, which leads you to not challenging yourself, which leads you to make excuses.
I think it leads us to more anxiety. I think it leads us to more depression. I think it leads us to more mental health issues. I think it leads to a lot of things like that because we become so comfortable in whatever, life is throwing at us or something that we don't know how to be resilient.
Yeah.
And being resilient is what's going to help us get out of all that stuff, out of that funk.
Another thing, and this is a sort of pedantic point, it really makes no difference, but I'm glad that like cameras and like camera phones weren't around when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like there's stuff that we did and said, and I'm glad that it's lost to history.
Yeah.
I think about that sometimes too, like when it comes to text fighting, things like that. Like there's all this stuff never goes away.
No, it's out there.
Ever.
It's out there.
Forever.
Right.
Everyone.
And you have to remember that when all that stuff's out there.
Yeah. Just something to
ponder.
Kind of chew on a little bit. It's just, think about it. Just, I don't know, go back in history. What if, I don't know. Makes no difference. I think it's all we've got here.
Yeah.
I think I've ranted enough on text fighting.
Right. And if you just practice, guys, like I know that so many people do this, but just shift it a little bit. Try to not text fight and see how it makes you feel. See how it makes you feel in your life, in your relationships, everything.
Yeah. And also I know that there are plenty of valid reasons people have many disorders or pain from your past. All valid reasons why you prefer texting, but I don't think it can be used as the sole reason that you just give up and you don't try to develop that other side of yourself as well. Right. If we're about anything here, if we stand for anything, it's about challenging those things, challenging that stuff. Okay.
Growth.
I know it's tough, but it's not impossible, and you're only going to be better for it. So I know it's difficult, and it's going to make it that much more powerful and meaningful to you whenever you do start to learn how to develop and move past some of that stuff. I will never accept this is the way it is and just excuse.
Yep. That's just who I am.
Listen, dude, I am the most neurodivergent person of all time. I suck. I get distracted so badly, so badly that I overwhelm myself and I get anxiety and sweaty armpits because I'm trying to do 5 things at once, because as soon as I get a notification of some kind, I'm off to do that. It feels so urgent to me, I can't help myself. That's the way I roll. When someone sends me a long message, I have to respond right away with another long message. So like the reason I'm able to talk about this is because I've had to beat this stuff. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be in your shoes. I get it. I've been invalidated via text. I've dealt with every bit of that shit.
How did it feel to stop doing that and challenge it, though, to where you don't respond immediately?
First, it makes you a little anxious because you feel like, oh, but they're not going to know how I feel. It feels scary.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point of acceptance where you go, doesn't fucking matter because they never cared anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. It's just another way for them to invalidate the way I feel about this, or to invalidate the experience, or to hyper focus on something I said 6 months ago that's completely irrelevant because I was really upset and it's not that important. It's just...
Yeah, but is it more freeing now that you let go of those responses?
So much more.
Like
I feel like I get to control now what comes in and what goes out.
Yeah.
I'm not
because
just...
it's something that's in your control.
Yeah.
That's what's important
here. And I typically don't respond to stuff like that. I won't.
Right.
And on the off chance I ever do, need to take some time to respond to something, I love to, if I can, set up a time for me and this person to talk. Like if we're that far apart, I'm not going to try to figure this out via text.
Right.
I'm just not.
Right.
But we've also, like, we should say this too, like we've also been able to solve problems via text, but I think it's because we're reasonable people that want to hear the other.
Exactly.
And I think you could, if that's how you roll and you have that, that's the foundation, none of this applies to you. You're fine.
Right.
But I think if you don't,
and
you're spinning your wheels.
You guys know. You know. You're smart.
Y'all
are smart people.
Okay.
That's it now.
We'll end it with that. If you are in the United States, I hope that you have a happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you eat all the food, whatever it might be. What's your favorite, by the way?
What's my favorite food?
Thanksgiving food.
Dressing with gravy.
Okay, hang on a second. At your house, there's always two different dressings.
No, there's
At
not.
your mom's house.
No, there's not.
Yeah, there's always one that's like different than the other.
No, you're full of shit. What are you talking about?
I swear to you.
No, my mom used to make one when I was when I used to be a vegetarian, so she would make one, or I would bring one that would have like vegetarian
Didn't have
stuff,
chicken stock in it.
Chicken
and
stock or turkey. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking there used to be one that had like meat in it for sure.
Okay.
And then there was
like
another
turkey.
one that was like, okay, I don't want to be mean, but there was one that was super dry and one that's super good. And I don't remember which one was which, but there was always two. But dressing's your favorite thing, dressing and gravy?
Yes. And I like it with some cranberry sauce.
Why you call it dressing and not stuffing?
Because we don't put it in our turkey. We don't stuff the turkey to make the dressing.
So why is it called dressing?
I don't know.
It's a bread
You know
casserole.
what I really want to try? I want to try like a New England style dressing.
Oh, with clams?
With like oysters, I believe it is, or something.
Is it
Maybe
oysters
it's
or clams?
I don't know, but
I think it's clams.
But I would love to have like an old New England style Thanksgiving, because that's like, what did they eat? Like lobster?
I think they ate a lot of fish and like venison and stuff.
Yeah, it's great. I want to do that. I think that sounds
And a
delicious.
big lobster boil.
Well, I wanted to go to Boston for Thanksgiving one year and have a New England Thanksgiving.
If any wheelies want to host us one year, just let us know.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Generally it's going to have sugar in it. I love
Sweet potatoes?
I love candy yams.
Yeah.
And
You like it with the marshmallows on top?
Hell yeah.
Okay, my mom doesn't make them that way.
I
Your
know,
mom
it
makes
makes
them
me
that way,
sad,
and they're
man.
good. But my mom makes it
Oh,
with
that
like
green stuff. The green stuff is my favorite thing.
Nobody makes that. You have to make that this year if you're
It's
gonna
called,
have it.
if you want to look it up, it's like the most, it looks like some shit Cousin Eddie would eat on Christmas vacation
Yeah,
or Vegas
it's-
vacation. Ambrosia salad.
Ambrosia salad, yes. So
It's like green jello stuff.
with cottage cheese,
Dude,
pineapple.
so I could eat
you
a
and the kids
bowl
love
of
it.
that stuff.
I
my
don't
God.
mind it. It's good, but I feel like I don't know.
I can eat the whole container by
You used to
myself.
make extras.
I can
trying
eat
to
the entire
But
container.
turkey's so
I love the pie.
spare.
No, fried turkey's the best, by the way.
No, fried turkey is
or
amazing.
really someone who knows what they're doing with the smoker too.
I made a good turkey during COVID.
You did. That was one.
It was
that was
delicious.
the best turkey I've ever had. Came out
It
of
was
the oven.
so good. I
the-
used like
amazing.
oranges. I brined it in oranges or
was
something.
amazing.
It was so good.
Casseroles are usually pretty good too.
I make a homemade green bean
All
casserole.
right, so we can agree the food's great. What's your least favorite part? Your least favorite thing in Thanksgiving? Like
The
why?
turkey,
Why do we
but
always make that?
Mashed potatoes.
Just do without them?
Yes, because we have dressing, we have rolls, we have a shit ton of carbs, we have macaroni and cheese. Why are we making mashed potatoes? I don't know why it's because it's like mashed potatoes are such a basic dish that we can have like any night of the week.
Yeah.
So it's like, why are we having mashed potatoes?
I don't know. Kids like rolls. That's their favorite part.
Yeah. Do you like mashed potatoes or do
Indifferent.
you really care?
I'm indifferent. I wouldn't like. I never thought like, oh, hey, you know, it'd make this meal perfect. Some mashed potatoes.
I don't think I ever put the mashed potatoes
Twice
on my
baked
plate.
potatoes though, different story.
We have those at Christmas.
Love them.
Sydney loves those. Those are delicious.
Pies, I'm all for it.
Yeah, we ordered pies this year.
But yeah, we're gonna watch.
Ooh, spinach balls are good. I always make my spinach balls too.
Oh yeah, we've got Cowboys Giants. It's gonna be the sparest football game of all time. The perfect opportunity for a nap.
To sleep.
That's it. Okay, that's all we've got. Just rambling at this point, and I gotta go to bed.
Yay!
All right. Thank you for joining us. Again, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week. Till next time, I am Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.